Hello and welcome to our Saturdays with Tara Hangout on Air. I'm Mary Beth at the Law of Attraction Club, and we're on the web at the loaclub.com. On these Hangouts, we collaborate with our friends Tara. This Hangout is the summary of our theme for the week and continues on our member conference line with live Q&A. Today's topic is how to be wealthy, the 2 things you must do to create money. You can get invites to our open calls, which we offer periodically, and our powerful free letting go process by going to the loaclub.com. So now we're going to turn the call over to Robin and Tara.
Welcome to our discussion on how to use, quote unquote, the law of attraction to become wealthy and stay wealthy. Some of you will say that it's not about money, and of course you're right. Some of you will say that it's absolutely about money, and of course you're also right. To all of you we say, money is just the label we're using. If you prefer to focus on something else, be it relationships or physical well-being or abundance in all things or happiness or world peace or a government that works, then declare your focus to yourself and follow along. We're going to reverse our usual order of play and begin today at the business end of things by outlining the 2 things you must do to start money flowing to you and keep money flowing to you. And by the way, this is the whole story, because if you do these things, everything else is effortless. Everything else falls into place serendipitously. Not only will these 2 steps work for you, whatever your desires are, but we'll be a little audacious here and declare that you can't possibly change your world without them. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here because we'll be discussing more about that at the end. However, there's one huge myth that we want to tackle up front here. It's the "you must work hard" myth. It's sometimes labeled as perseverance. It's sometimes called getting or staying motivated. It's a myth perpetrated by almost all of the self-help gurus as part of their particular success formula. What they all declare under a variety of names is the concept that you have to get into action. You have to force yourself to some extent to do some things you don't want to do. Well, phooey to that. We say struggle is optional and not recommended because it's not about physical action. The world is full of hard-working people who spend their whole life struggling to make ends meet. And at the other end of the scale, there are a whole lot of rich people who don't do much at all, but have everything. If your desire is to join that latter group, then our desire is to help you get there. And the first thing to understand is that it's not about doing stuff. It's about how you think. It's not about rowing upstream against the current. Everything you want is downstream. It's about throwing the oars overboard and drifting into prosperity. If that sounds good to you, then here are the 2 essential elements. 1, you have to choose more to feel good. The 2 operative words here are choose and more. You might think that you can't control your thoughts, but you can. And it's important to do so, because it's only when you're feeling good that you're heading downstream. And remember, everything you want is downstream. 2, you have to practice thinking more about what you want and less about what is. The 2 operative words here are practice and, once again, more. If you're spending all of your time observing what is, you're practicing status quo. And the more you practice status quo, the more real and unchangeable it becomes. It's time for some new thought habits. So now let's get into some examples as we explain these 2 concepts. We touched on them last week, and today we're going to spend time really understanding them, because they're the keys to the kingdom. They're extremely simple, but we're talking about some well-practiced ways of thinking here. And so it's going to take a strong commitment and a new level of focus to develop some new habits and bring you to a new state of wealth consciousness. Are you committed to making changes to your lifetime habits? Are you ready to give your focus and attention to making a difference? If not now, then when? Let's make it now. Here we go. 1. How you feel is a choice. Choose to feel good. Nothing is more important. We understand that the concept that you can actually consciously manage how you feel may not be familiar to you. As with most things, you've probably delegated that choice to your subconscious autopilot, so that most of how you think and feel and how you react is automatic. But you can take it back, and you can make it a conscious decision. Your thoughts control your feelings, and therefore, if you control your thoughts, you're controlling how you feel. When you're worrying or angry or jealous or in regret, you're spending energy creating what you don't want, and there's no sense to that. These are not just feelings. When you allow yourself to wallow in these counterproductive patterns, you're heading upstream and battling the current. Nothing is more important than feeling good, and therefore nothing is more important than choosing to think in ways that feel good. The first thing to do is take the time to recognize how you feel, and then to make that a habit so that you become more ongoingly aware. Well, that's easy, you might think, and it is. For example, on a 0 to 10 scale, how do you feel right now? It's easy to give yourself a rating, but until we asked, you were probably not consciously aware of it. And that's the not so easy piece. You forget to check. And we've observed many of you for hours or weeks or years on end, living in an ambient state of something less than a 5. To some extent, living lives of quiet desperation. So the trick is to develop the habit of ongoing awareness, to catch yourself when you drift below that midpoint and take corrective action. And there's that word habit again. What does that word mean? It means belief patterns that you've cemented into what we'll loosely call your subconscious. How do they get there? You put them there by repetition. And now you need to develop some new autopilot subconscious patterns, because it's down at that level that almost all of your moment-by-moment decisions are made. Changing your life means changing those patterns, and that's where the focus comes in. You focus consciously and repetitively until new habits are established. Mastery comes when that subconscious of yours is no longer excluding you from a whole stack of exciting and limitless possibilities. And 2, you have to practice thinking more about what you want and less about what is. The 2 operative words here are practice and more. If you're observing what is and operating as if the world is real and unchangeable, you're practicing status quo. And the more you practice status quo, the more real, quote unquote, it becomes. And the more inevitable, quote unquote, things become. If you're observing what you want, which is to say, you're imagining things as you want them to be, you're pointing yourself towards a new version of reality. Can you see that as far as your mind is concerned? There's no difference between what you judge as the real world and what you judge as an imagined reality. Imagination is not something flippant. Imagining yourself wealthy is what creates a wealth mentality. And a wealth mentality is what launches you into abundance. Wealth is a state of mind. Think back to your day today. Since you got up this morning, how many non-status quo decisions have you made? Versus how many 100 times have you reaffirmed the realness of what is? Let's pick up on those examples we used last week and expand on them. I've just read a bad review on the gizmo I ordered, and now I'm worried that it won't work. So you ordered a gizmo. Then you read the Amazon reviews and discovered that many of those user experiences rated it as unsatisfactory or unreliable. So now you've got regrets. Now you've set your expectations of a poor result. What you've done is declared the world to be real and predictable, and your results are going to match that. And that's a circular path that reinforces how real all this seems to be. Oh, now I can't get to the store until 5 o'clock, and traffic's going to be heavy and the store's going to be a zoo. So you get into your car, worried that the traffic will be bad, and it is. You know, when you get to the store, the checkout lines will be long, and they are. You've learned, which means you've chosen to believe, that's the way the world is. And it is that way, of course, because that choice of yours has made it so. I've got more bills coming in this month than I can possibly pay. So here you are, facing what you've defined as reality. And what's going to be your ambient feel-good status this month about money? Now let's be serious, you might say. The money's got to come from somewhere. It's not going to appear in my checking account out of thin air. Really? If that's what you've decided, then that's the truth. But not because that's the way reality works. It's because that's what you've chosen to believe. And you've practiced that belief to the point where that so-called reality of yours is so seemingly self-evident that you know it's utterly beyond question. I've lost my car keys and now I've got to find them. So what do? You're operating on the inbuilt assumption that the physical world is real. And so those physical keys will be somewhere. So you mentally retrace your steps. They could be in this place or that pocket, in that jacket, or I could have dropped them by the door. It seems like you're deciding where to look, but actually you're choosing your expectations and reality will conform. So you go looking and you quote unquote find them. Or maybe you have no idea where they could be and you start worrying you've lost them forever, which means you may never find them. To change the world, you have to practice thinking more about what you want and less about what is. We're suggesting you stop reaffirming so-called reality to the point where it crowds out and suppresses that inherent knowing you have of the truth. And once again, you end up at the point where your so-called reality is so seemingly self-evident that you know it's utterly beyond question. We say you must give yourself some wiggle room. Take some time outs in your day and challenge the status quo and reflect on what's really going on. You're creating your world moment by moment, frame by frame, from your tapestry of chosen beliefs and expectations. For example, in relation to your lost car keys, those car keys will be where you now create them to be. As before, you may well choose some likely places where you will recreate them. But now you're doing it knowingly, and that's a world of difference. So, to sum up here, commit to yourself that you're going to live life from now on within the context of two questions. How do I feel? And what do I want? Ask yourself right now, how do I feel? And whenever you do that, recognize that it doesn't matter what the truthful answer is. Just the commitment to get into this routine makes a difference. Let's say on a particular day, the answer on a 0 to 10 scale is bad, something less than a 5. It doesn't matter. You can then move to the next question, what do I want now? And then you can get into a little of the would be, will be, is process. What would it be like if? Then as you would be for a while, carry that thought to what will it be like when? Then step into the beingness of that with what is it like to be in that world now? Then carry that back to your first question. How do I feel now? And notice how you can ratchet up those feelings of yours. That's the formula. It's simple. But since we're talking about changing deep-seated habits, it takes commitment and focus. We know we promised to keep the deeper underlying truth about so-called reality to the end here. But as we went through this, we noticed we strayed a little into the metaphysical side of things. So now let's be declarative about that. You don't have to understand who you are to create money in your world. But just in case you want to understand what's really going on, we offer the following. There are only two things about you haven't created and that you cannot change. Firstly, you're an individuated but always connected extension of the timeless collective consciousness of all that is. And secondly, it's your individual and unique belief choices that create everything about you and the worlds you inhabit. So the simple truth is that nothing exists in your world that you haven't created by thought. And if you haven't thought of it, it doesn't exist. And everything that is in your world lies within the boundaries you have chosen. The certainties, the probabilities, the possibilities, and the improbabilities. The context that you live in, that world that appears to surround you, is a moment-by-moment reflection of who you are. You chose it all, and you can re-choose and change any of it. So let's just finish with this. You can do this. If you choose to believe you cannot, of course that will become your truth. But we're here to tell you, you can. You all can. Just commit to trying it and give it your best shot. And you'll be amazed at what starts to change in your life and in your world. And of course, we are always here to support you. And now we'll move to our longer discussion and to any questions you might have.
This Hangout on Air was the summary of our theme for the week. We do 3 live calls a week with Q&A for our members on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You can become a member by going to the loaclub.com/join. So now our longer discussion continues with live Q&A on our member conference line. So back over to Robin.